Hi, I'm Fru Kolfina, and I am here to talk about the Majestic Spang. I'm going to first read you a little bit from the Barony of Namron website. The Spang is a species of fabric frog that lives only in the unique habitat found in the Barony of Namron. Spangs appear to spontaneously generate from the distinctive red mud of the area as it phases quickly through the heat, cold, wet, and dry of the region's volatile spring season. The sudden appearance of the Spangs is culturally significant as a herald of spring. Thus, the Spang is central to a spring festival the local inhabitants usually call Beltane. At Beltane, Spangs are used in various rituals welcoming spring and the giddy silliness associated with spring fever. In one such ritual, Spang hewing, Spangs dip themselves into refreshing water and leap onto sticks to await a friendly populace member who will assist this immobile frog by flinging it through the air and hopefully through a hula hoop. Another ritual involves dressing Spangs in finery and displaying them for the adoration of the populace. The Spang's natural tendency to willingly participate in these activities has caused scientists to speculate that they're somehow necessary to the Spang life cycle, but the exact mechanism is still a mystery. So, to attract your very own Spang, we have ways. We have on our website posted 3 different templates that you can use to create your own Spang. They all come from different sources, have different origins, and I think kind of serve different purposes. The best one for making Spangs in quantity for Spang hewing is the one from Stacia, and it looks like this, and it has like the humpy legs. I have one on there that's actually based on one that my grandmother made for me back in the early 70s that I had for years. And it has the straight leg and they're a little harder to turn. So these work out really well. This is my template from last year when I cut about 250 Spangs out. So it's a little messy, but I just printed the piece of paper and I sewed mine to poster board, or glued it to poster board because I was going to make so many. It's coming apart, but just a piece of paper, if you're just making a couple, is going to be fine for tracing and cutting. We usually use a thinner fabric, but use whatever scraps you have available. For example, this is just old sheets that are pretty worn and thin. And then I have another one, I'll show you in a minute, but it's made from like the ends of sleeves on an old ruined button-down shirt. So you can use whatever you want. And then you'll need thread, something to sew it up. You can hand sew them or you can machine sew them. You don't need a really wide seam allowance, but make sure it's sturdy, because we're going to turn them inside out. And you'll also need probably about 3/4 of a cup of not instant rice and also not cooked. Your Spang's going to get wet. And when it gets wet, we kind of want the rice to get gross so that it makes the fabric slimy. So it's more like dipping your hand into a bucket of water and pulling out a real frog. I mean, these are real Spangs. You don't have to get your Spang wet. You can make one to keep forever. You can stuff it with polyfill or with those little pellets. You could also sew on eyes. If your Spang's going to be handled by small children, though, just make sure you're very careful about how you attach the eyes. You could even embroider them on, sew buttons on for them, however you want. So once you're ready to sew, you take your 2 pieces of fabric, and if they have a right side and a wrong side, like this does, make sure you pin your right sides together. And when you sew, you have to leave an opening to turn your Spang right side out. I do not recommend doing it at the joint between the 2 legs. I recommend doing it at the top of the head. Because if you leave the opening here and then you go to fill it, you still have to fill the feet, and it's going to be a lot harder to sew it without spilling more rice out. So I always leave the top open. So this one is in 2 colors, which I was going to mention. They don't have to be the same on both sides. I have 2 different kinds of fabric. And it's all sewn up and turned. And I left his mouth open to eat the rice. Yum, 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 yum. After you turn it, just depending on like how close your seams were to the edge and how even they were, you may have a little gathering. And that's fine because we're about to plump him up a little bit. So you get a funnel or whatever that you have to fill it, sheet of notebook paper rolled up into a snow cone shape. I have parchment paper. Poor Spang. And we start filling it up. And I always try to angle it down to get some into each of the lower legs first. Because this one is for hewing, I'm not going to stuff it completely full. It won't be tight all the way around because we want them to be kind of gross to pick up. So this is 3/4 of a cup, and you can see it's not full. It's kind of flat. And then once I sew the head closed, you can push it through into the front legs too. So you could go with a little bit more rice than that, 1 cup to 1 1/4 even, and it would be fine. And just be a little plumper. And then you just hand sew the hole closed. You can use a whip stitch, a blanket stitch. You can fold it under and do a running stitch across the outside. Again, if it's for hewing, it's going to be fine because we're going to discard them. We don't really want to keep wet, grody, ricey Spangs laying around to mold and mildew. If you're keeping it, making it as a toy to keep or as a souvenir, then, maybe spend a little more time. But anyway, once they're done, they're super cute. Here's one that I made for Beltane a year ago out of some scrap block print test fabric. And he has gone a lot of places. He just went to Crown Tournament with me, so they're a lot of fun. So anyway, make a Spang or two for yourself. And then you can decorate them and dress them up and enter them into the Spang Finery competition. Or you can make a few to donate for Spang hewing, which is loads and loads of fun. And happy Beltane to you all. Bye.